Deep thoughts? JustProfessor here. Everyone knows the system is broken, but nobody will change it. You see a problem at work. A clear problem. Something that wastes time. Something that costs money. Something that frustrates everyone. And you mention it. You suggest a better way. A smarter approach. An obvious fix, and people agree with you. They nod. They say you are right. They say something should change. And then nothing happens. Weeks pass, months pass. The problem stays. The waste continues. The frustration grows. And you ask why. Why are we still doing this? Why has nothing changed? And the answer is always the same. That is just how we do things here. That is the process. That is the way it has always been. And you realize the problem is not that people do not see the issue. The problem is that the system refuses to move. Even when everyone knows it should. This is called organizational inertia bias. And it is why companies collapse while everyone inside them watches it happen. Here is how it works. Organizations build systems, processes, structures, ways of doing things. And once those systems are in place, they become incredibly hard to change. Not because they work well, but because they exist. People get comfortable with them. They learn how to navigate them. They build their roles around them. And even when the systems stop working, even when they become obstacles, people resist changing them. Because change requires effort. Change creates uncertainty. Change threatens the stability that people depend on. So they keep the broken system. They work around it. They complain about it, but they do not fix it. Because fixing it feels harder than living with it. This is why organizational inertia bias is so dangerous. It does not just slow progress, it prevents survival. Companies that cannot adapt die. But they do not die because they lack smart people. They die because those smart people are trapped in systems that refuse to move. And by the time the organization is willing to change, it is too late. Most people think that if something is obviously broken, it will get fixed. That rational people in charge will make rational decisions, that organizations will adapt when they need to. But they do not, because organizations are not rational. They are resistant to change, resistant to risk, resistant to anything that disrupts the way things currently are. And that resistance kills them. Slowly, predictably, while everyone inside sees it coming. Think about what happens when someone proposes a change. A good change, a necessary change. They present the idea. They show the benefits. They explain how it will improve things. And what happens? The organization finds reasons to say no. It is too expensive. It is too risky. It is not the right time. We need more data. We need more meetings. We need approval from more people. And those reasons sound legitimate. They sound careful. They sound responsible. But they are not. They are just excuses. Excuses to avoid the discomfort of doing something different. This is what organizational inertia does. It disguises resistance as prudence. It makes staying still look like being careful. It makes avoiding change feel like protecting the company. But it is not protection, it is paralysis. And paralysis in a changing world is death. Now think about the people stuck in these systems. They see the problems. They know what needs to change. They have ideas. They have solutions. But they are powerless. Because one person cannot move an organization. No matter how right they are. No matter how obvious the problem is. The system is bigger than them, and the system does not want to move. So they stop trying. They stop suggesting. They stop caring. And the organization loses the very people who could have saved it. Not because those people quit, but because the organization made them give up. Think about how many good employees get frustrated and leave because nothing ever changes. They see waste. They see inefficiency. They see opportunities. And they try to fix it, but the organization resists. Meeting after meeting, approval after approval, delay after delay. And eventually they realize nothing will change, so they leave. And the organization thinks the problem was the person. But it was not. The problem was the inertia, the refusal to adapt. The commitment to doing things the way they have always been done. Even when that way is failing. This is the trap. Organizational inertia makes stability feel like success. But stability is not success when the world is changing. Stability is just refusing to adapt. And refusing to adapt means getting left behind, slowly at first. Then suddenly. And by the time the organization realizes it needs to change, competitors have already moved. Markets have already shifted. Opportunities have already passed, and the organization is stuck, trapped by its own refusal to move earlier. And here is the worst part. Everyone saw it coming. Everyone knew change was needed. Everyone agreed the old ways were not working, but the organization did not move. Because moving required someone to take responsibility, someone to take risk, someone to disrupt the comfortable routine. And nobody wanted to be that person, so everyone waited, hoping someone else would act, hoping the problem would solve itself, hoping they could avoid the discomfort of change. And while they waited, the organization declined. Think about companies that used to dominate and now do not exist. Blockbuster, Kodak, Nokia. They did not fail because they were stupid. They failed because they could not change fast enough. They saw the future coming. They had smart people. They had resources, but they had inertia. Systems that were too big to move. Processes that were too entrenched to abandon. Cultures that valued stability over adaptation. And that inertia killed them. Not quickly, but completely. This is what organizational inertia bias does. It prioritizes comfort over survival. It protects the present at the expense of the future. It keeps broken systems in place because changing them is hard. And it makes everyone complicit. Because everyone sees the problem. Everyone knows what needs to change. But nobody does anything, because doing something means fighting the inertia. And fighting the inertia is exhausting. This means organizational inertia is not about lacking solutions. It is about refusing to implement them. The solutions exist. The smart people are there. The problems are obvious, but the organization will not move. Because movement requires disruption, it requires risk. It requires admitting that the old way was wrong. And organizations hate admitting they were wrong. They hate disrupting what is comfortable. They hate taking risks when staying still feels safer. So they stay still, and they decay. And they convince themselves they are being responsible when they are actually being cowardly. So here's what you need to understand. If you are in an organization that refuses to change, you have two options. Fight the inertia, or leave. Fighting means proposing change over and over. Means building coalitions. Means pushing against resistance until something moves. And it is exhausting. Most people cannot sustain it. So they leave. And honestly, leaving might be smarter. Because some organizations will not change until they collapse. And you do not have to be there when that happens. But if you stay, stop expecting the organization to suddenly wake up. Stop thinking that if you just explain the problem clearly enough, they will finally listen. They hear you. They understand you. They just are not going to act. Because acting is uncomfortable, and organizations are allergic to discomfort. So they will keep doing what they have always done. And they will keep getting the results they have always gotten. And eventually, those results will not be enough. Organizational inertia bias tells you that stability is safety. But it is not. Stability in a changing world is danger. It is slow death. It is watching your company become irrelevant while pretending everything is fine. And if you see that happening, do not wait for the organization to change, because it probably will not. At least not in time. Change yourself. Change your situation. Because you cannot fix a system that refuses to move. You can only decide whether to stay trapped in it. Subscribe if you want to see more ways systems trap people who know better.